Hello and welcome to this week's live. My name is Jennifer Longmore, founder of souljourneys.ca, the #1 Akashic Record training school in the world, and host or facilitator, group administrator for the Prosperity Portal. I am excited to chat with you today. I had some awarenesses last week during CEO week. So every month I set aside 1 week just to look at, just to create space. I end up doing a lot of things. I'm just not beholden to a calendar. And I think many of you can appreciate that, right? Where sometimes you just need space to not have to be anywhere. You can choose to be there, but you don't have to be plugged into a calendar. So during that time, I end up being quite productive, but I also have space to see things that I can't when I'm really heavily in service mode and leading team meetings and various things like that. And one of the things I uncovered was these 4 client archetypes that end up being quite costly in your business. I'm not going to go over them all today because it would take a long time, but I'm going to share with you what I believe is probably the most costly one and the stealthiest one, because the languaging can be a little bit interesting. But I've kind of started to see this pattern with this particular type of archetype that we all are going to see in our communities. And there's a variety of ways to deal with this type of archetype. So I'm first going to identify it and then let you know how I might handle it and then take it from there. So welcome. If you are your first time watcher, let me know in the comments so I can say hello. If you're watching the replay, let me know that too, so I can come back and say hello to you. And if you're live, say hello so I can acknowledge you because I like to say hi to people. Okay, so one of these costly archetypes is the consumer. Now, the consumer can be misidentified as being a client or a customer. Those folks are buying. They're buying without needing to be pre-sold on things. They're just leaning in. A consumer can be a buyer, but they're not necessarily a buyer. They have a pattern of consumption throughout almost all areas of their life. And I started to really unpack this. And if you don't know, I'm a forensic investigator by training. So I tend to look for patterns and I look for where there's crossover. It's just kind of how my brain is wired. So the consumer is someone that is likely going to be in a lot of free spaces, consuming you and your energy, consuming your content that you have spent a significant amount of time, money, and energy cultivating that wisdom to share with people. They are likely having a pretty considerable amount of consumer debt. They are likely consuming something pretty heavily. Could be social media, right? They're a consumer instead of a creator. They may be consuming a lot of alcohol, having some emotional eating, something along those lines. They're really beholden to the program of consumerism, which comes from the crazy people that run the world ultimately, right? And is reinforced by all kinds of things and, language and copy, the way it's written on billboards and all the things, right? We're all kind of a product of consumerism to a certain degree, but not all of us choose to show up as a consumer. So the consumer wants to just pull on your energy, pull. They're not in your spaces to receive, they're in there to take, which is a different energy. Outwardly, it looks like the same action, but they're not there because they want to receive anything. They're wanting to take. They might be wanting to take your IP. I've seen this happen where not with me personally. I've had IP taken for sure, but I'm talking about personal stories even, where they share your pictures and your personal anecdotes and pass it off as their own. That can be the behavior of a consumer or someone that's taking, I should say. So the reasons that they're in your spaces tend to not be the reasons that you would like them there. And they can be quite time consuming as well. Not only do you likely feel them pulling on your energy and feel them, wanting to absorb everything in all of your spaces, but they are probably people that you're unconsciously marketing to because you see them constantly and you're like, oh my goodness, they've been in my space for a while and they're not stepping into anything. I guess I must not be offering anything of value to them. I'm going to bust my hiney and try to create offers for them. And still, oh, nothing, right? That can be a way that it shows up. A consumer also has no problem consuming your time or your team's time. So these are the folks that are probably going to be private messaging you, asking for guidance, or they're going to constantly be commenting on your posts, which seemingly seems good, but they're basically asking you to coach them in a social media post. And let's be honest, if someone was really serious about addressing an issue, they wouldn't be hashing it out on someone's public profile on Facebook or Instagram, right? And but they can also be reaching out to your team a lot, all about the free content that you're sharing. My link is broken. I need this. This broke. I deleted this by accident. Where's the call recording? You know, that kind of energy. Now, these questions as a standalone are not an issue, right? It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's when there's a whole pattern of behavior of just constantly consuming. And we are allowed to determine who gets to benefit from being in our spaces, right? Because at some point, if you have been on someone's email list for 8 years, absorbing all of their stuff and signing up for all their challenges and downloading all of their freebies, presumably there's your content. I mean, theoretically, we could argue that your content isn't moving them, right? Because they're not taking any deeper action, because any reasonable self-led human and CEO of their life and business knows that they're not going to be moving the needle, just constantly downloading free stuff and hanging out in spaces, right? So we could argue that there's nothing really of value there for them anymore. If they've been around you for X amount of time and they're still not leaning in, then why are they still there, right? If there's nothing of value to place a value on. And for some people, they don't have the money, and that's okay. But are they sharing your stuff? Are they, inviting other people to your Facebook group? Are they doing something that demonstrates that they're not just in your space to take? Now, I know this can be very confronting for a lot of people. We don't want to address it and so on. But I can tell you, having an 8-figure company, that I didn't get here by allowing people to leech on me. I stagnated at 6 figures. I stagnated at multiple 6 figures by allowing that, but I didn't get here by that. I got here by constantly increasing my boundaries and standards without apology. Because at some point, if you're going to be in my world, especially because I go very deep with people, that's just how I'm wired. I'm not interested in people that don't give enough shits about their purpose, that aren't willing to, at some point, move their bullshit aside and move forward. Right? That's boring to me. That's a total snooze fest. That's uninspiring. I only work with people that inspire me and are doing great things in the world, and really doing that by what they're showing me, not what they're telling me. So it's okay. One option with these consumer types is to give them a window, right? You don't have to even tell them that. They're not entitled to know that. It's your space. You get to decide what happens in your space and what doesn't. But you get to decide, maybe there's a time limit. I know some people will clear out their email list every 30 days. If someone's opted in and within 30 days they haven't purchased, then they bump them out. That's not how I handle things, but that's not for me to decide whether that person is allowed to do that. But we, let's say challenges, for example, we run challenges probably every quarter. If you have signed up for every challenge and you've still never leaned into anything, I get to decide whether someone gets to keep coming into those spaces without really moving the needle. Because I'm doing it to help people, but then at some point you have to be willing to help yourself and lean in. And it's okay if you lean out of the space. I or you may not resonate for whoever's, orbiting us, but we're allowed to set those boundaries. I got here because I was willing to increase boundaries and standards. I always say that the bounty is in the boundaries. And I got here because I know who I'm serving and I know who I'm not. So full transparency, I, of course, still let people seep in. I have intuitive hits, and I know you do as well. I know whether someone's going to be aligned or not, just based on how they're showing up with me. Sometimes it's a texture of energy. Sometimes it's outwardly what they're showing me. But when I'm in my rose-colored glasses mode, when I'm in my, but I've got to be a good healer mode, then I justify that. Oh, well, I don't have any empirical evidence as to why I'm feeling this. I should let them into my space and see how I can help them. Or I know they're showing up this way, but if they just listen to this material, or if they just, show up on these few calls, I'm going to be able to help them move this energy. And that may be true, right? That actually may be true. But probably 99% of the time when I get an intuitive hit that someone's not going to be aligned, that ends up being the reality. And we can make ourselves wrong. We can contract. We can be like, oh, I don't want to focus on client attraction right now. I keep attracting whoever, right? And I don't want that. Or we can be honest with ourselves, right? And say, yeah, I created this situation. And then look at, well, who do we want to create? But it was in looking at who has come into my world, and I'm talking inner circle wise, right? That ended up showing up in ways where I was like, oof, I don't think we can do this dance together anymore. I've always known, if I'm really going to look at it, I've always known that there was something there that probably was working. But I didn't own that. So I have to own that. And of course I have to recommit and make a divine promise to myself. Okay, I don't need empirical evidence. If I get an intuitive hit that this isn't going to work out, I'm just going to honor that. But then it allows me to inform myself about, well, who do I really want to call in? And are my spaces lined up to that? Is the way that I write copy lined up for that? Is the frequency in which I go on go and do talks or do my own lives or whatever, is every way in which I'm showing up aligned with who I want to call in? And then being okay with that, being okay with people being mad, feeling offended. Last week we told someone who had already been banned. And if I'm putting in writing that you're banned, like, you have to really have done some not so great things. And they still wanted to email my one company, email the other company, message us through social media. Oh, I want to be in this free event. Why can't I be in this free event? Well, you're just proving why, right? Like, if someone's told you that you're banned permanently from a community, why would you want to keep leaning into a community that you're not welcome in? There's a reason, right? I by the time it gets to that point, it's usually some pretty serious money integrity issues, taking my IP, being exceptionally rude to either me or my team, usually more my team, because as you can imagine, I nip any personal direction or anything that's directed at me, I nip that in the bud really, really quickly. But when I find out it's with my team, not going to happen. So the consumer type, if you really look at them in your business, the people that in the past didn't work out, you might be able to see some of these signs that I identified for you, or you may have some of these folks currently. So one way you can do that is just to sweep your community, right? Sweep your Facebook group, sweep your social accounts, sweep your email list of anyone that, even if they're going to be mad at you, or they're going to be offended, or they're going to email and say, hey, how come you bumped me out? You don't owe them an explanation. They're not entitled to be in your spaces just because they signed up for a free gift or whatever. It's also going to be dependent upon how they show up. You can, depending on the person, have a direct conversation with them if you feel that it's worthwhile. You can keep allowing them in your space and say, hey, who cares? The more the merrier. There's a lot of choices that you can make. But with certain archetypes like mine, I have a very strong queen archetype. I don't do well with consumers being in my space, right? People that are pulling and grabbing and taking and just acting maybe even a little bratty or whatever, depending on the situation. Like, that's going to get people bumped out really quickly. And I'm okay with that. And not everyone thinks that's okay. Not everyone thinks that's healer behavior. And that, I would say, is just all programming as well, right? There's no such thing as, we're all subject to that, right? What it means to be a good daughter, what it means to be a good son, what it means to be a good friend, and so on and so on. We're all subject to that kind of societal programming. And the healer archetype is one of those as well, right? Where we are told what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, what we should be putting up with, what we shouldn't be putting up with. But ultimately, our loyalty needs to be to our business, and we are tasked with being an impeccable steward and guardian of our company, right? Because it's a portal of transformation for us, but it's also a portal of the divine moving through us to help other people. So we're allowed to do what we need to do to allow that exchange to be a pristine channel, but also to allow us to be a pristine channel. So let me know if this served you. If you are wanting to call in a ton of ideal clients and do that in a really easy breezy way, It just so happens that I am running my Ultimate Challenge Blueprint. So that is going to be over the course of a few days, little chunks of time so that it's not too overwhelming. I'm going to share with you all my marketing strategies, all of my templates, all of my copy, all of the back-end operations, literally everything. The same blueprint that my team works with every time. We have 6-figure launches every time we have a challenge. So sometimes really high 6-figure challenges. And there's a way that you can do it, and you can come and borrow my template essentially and figure out how you want to plug it into your own company. So if that's something that's appealing to you, let me know in the comments. I'll come back with your invitation to that. Obviously, there's a nominal fee because I'm literally giving you everything. I cannot guarantee you're going to have a 6-figure launch because I don't know your offers yet. I'll have to know that once you get into the container. I don't know your offers, and I don't know whether you're a talker or whether you're a walker. If you're a talker, then you're probably not going to get any results no matter who you study with. But if you are someone that actually does what you say you're going to do and follow the template, it would be really hard for you to not have at least a high 5-figure launch from these challenges. So I'm going to share with you all of my logic, all of my strategy, all of the high-level stuff, templates, etc. You simply just need to RSVP to join us, and I would love to see you there. I really love having challenges. I love everyone I meet. I love the energy in there, and it's a very easy way to build a relationship and give people a taste of what you're all about and how deep you go, or kind of your philosophy in life, or whatever it is that they're seeing from you. And it allows them to step more deeply into your community if that's something they feel inclined to do. So if that's you, let me know in the comments, like I said, and I will get that invitation to you. Let me know in the chat as well how this landed with you. Did it kick up any issues in your tissues? Are you seeing this clearly right now? And what action are you going to take today to help you either invite the consumers to rise into being an actual customer, or perhaps inviting them out of your community and into someone else's that they are more aligned with? So I hope this served. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.